Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living here in beautiful San Clemente. We're so glad you're here with us this beautiful November morning, and we'd like you to join us on our first sing-along song called More Than Enough.
There is more than enough in a universe that you created. There is more than enough on a planet of sacred design. There is more than enough for humanity made in your image. Why would I worry? Why would I doubt? Why would I ever think I'd go without? Why would I worry? Why would I doubt? Why would I ever think I'd go without? Your infinite love made me, made everything I see, and all that will ever be is your infinite love. Let my soul know the truth, whatever I choose to do. Your infinite love will prove more than enough. There is more than enough in a universe that you created. There is more than enough on a planet of sacred design. There is more than enough for humanity made in your image. Why would I worry? Why would I doubt? Why would I ever think I'd go without? Why would I worry? Why would I doubt? Why would I ever think I'd go without? Your infinite love made me, made everything I see. All that will ever be is your infinite love. Let my soul know the truth, whatever I choose to do. Your infinite love will prove more than enough. Your infinite love made me, made everything I see. All that will ever be is your infinite love. Let my soul know the truth, whatever I choose to do. Your infinite love will prove more than enough, more than enough, more than enough.
I'd like to introduce our musicians this morning. We have Ed Cusby on guitar, Bill Dixon on bass, David Page on drums. Our song leaders are Wade Woolridge, Kimberly Woolridge, Karen Allen, and Rick Dale. I'm Diana King Band here at the keys, and our soloists this morning are the beautiful Jewel Tones Choir. Yay! I'd like you to stand up and join us on another sing-along song. This is called God Is My Source, and get ready to dance in the aisles because David sets us up with these awesome drums.
God is my source, God is my power, God gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings, God gives me everything I need. Love is my source, love is my power, love gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings, love gives me everything I need. Joy is my source, joy is my power, joy gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings, joy gives me everything I need.
Now time to meet and greet your neighbor. And work your way back because we have more singing to do. And we're coming up with peace. Here we go.
Peace is my source, peace is my power, peace gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings, peace gives me everything I need. God is my source, God is my power, God gives me everything I need. So I give thanks for all my blessings, God gives me everything I need. God gives me everything I need. God gives me everything I need.
Good morning. Boy, it's so nice to see so many people here moving around, saying hi to each other, exchanging love. Makes me wonder, why would I doubt and why do I worry? I guess it must amuse me somehow because there's really no point in it. Anyways, really glad to see so many people here. I know you had choices. You could do other things today. I'm sure somewhere you could find a rerun of some I Love Lucy you missed once upon a time. You could be watching people yell at each other on television talk shows and getting ready to be agitated for the week. Grant could be meditating on the golf course, but he decided this is a better place to be. So we are going to begin with a reading of the Flames of Faith. But first I want to point out that if you've not been here before, we are a transcendental center. And what we do here is we teach spiritual principles. And if you spend any time learning how to use these principles, you can create the life of your dreams. So if there are areas of your life that are going really well, they can go better, right? And if there's things that are just going okay, why would you settle for that? So let's begin. Lighting the flames of faith, a call to service. We perform this ceremony to promote the universal consciousness of life, which acknowledges that all people, all faiths, all sentient beings come from the one great universal presence, which we call spirit. Fundamental to this truth is the unifying nature of all religious thought and experience, which we honor here today. We light the candle for the Tao, honoring the universal path of harmony and equilibrium, the natural way. We light the candle for the shamanic traditions, honoring the beliefs and practices of all indigenous peoples, the way of primal spirituality. We light the candle for Hinduism, honoring the path of knowledge, action, and devotion. We light the candle for Judaism, honoring the ethical path of living by sacred law. We light the candle for all forms of Buddhism, honoring the Four Noble Truths and the path of compassion. We light the candle for all forms of Christianity, honoring the Christ consciousness as the path of love. We light the candle for all forms of Islam, honoring the path of compliance with the will of God as the highest calling. We light the candle for the universalistic religion of Baha'i, honoring the path of unity and peace. We light the candle for all forms of New Thought, honoring the metaphysical path of mental healing through the practice of universal spiritual principles. And as practitioner Doris Pillardi lights the last candle, let it represent the path that brought you here this morning. Now I invite you to join me in an affirmative prayer. So I invite you to go inward. And as I go inward, I refresh my mind as I recognize the truth. And the truth that I know is that beyond all appearances, despite appearances, there is only one source, one life, one infinite, creative, loving being that is all intelligent. It is all wisdom. It is infinite capacity for beauty and for appreciation and for gratitude. It is unopposed and unopposable, so it is undisturbable peace. It is infinite, inexhaustible power and constantly creating expressions of itself, doing what life does, creating vehicles for expressing more of its essence, which in this case is more love, more joy, more harmony, more prosperity, more health, more of everything that I call good. And so I know that I am, as you are, not merely creations of this one, but literally direct expressions of infinite power, of infinite love, of infinite joy. And each of us is blessed to be a self-conscious expression of this one, which means that I have, as you have, the ability, the right, the authority, and the power to direct this creative magnificence. And so I claim from this consciousness, this awareness, that each person here is experiencing, finding whatever they are seeking, whatever you are seeking right now. Whether you are experiencing this live in this moment or by other media. And so I claim that each person is hearing those revelations of truth that remove any barriers to recognizing the truth and accepting the reality of being able to co-create and live the life of our dreams. So I do my part. I give thanks for this good as I accept it without any requirements, no prerequisites, no conditions, no yes buts. I simply accept the gift, I give thanks for it, and I release it into these perfect laws that act with absolute precision and can always be counted on fully. So I simply let it be, as we generally say. And so it is. And now Reverend Judy Chapman with our affirmation.
I'll read the affirmation, then we'll say it together. I am spirit, having a human experience, and as such, I welcome those qualities that I attribute to spirit. As I express them in my daily life, they are reflected back to me. I increase all forms of prosperity. And so it is. I am spirit having a human experience. And as such, I welcome those qualities that I attribute to spirit. As I express them in my daily life, they are reflected back to me. I increase all forms of prosperity. And so it is.
Thank you, Reverend Judy. And please welcome the Jewel Tones Choir and our pianist today, Mr. Jules Vogel. We also have a guest tambourinist, Karen Allen.
When your heart's full of sadness and it seems like the darkest night, just look deep inside you. There's a beacon of everlasting light. That light just keeps shining as bright as the noonday sun. It's the love of the Spirit in the heart of everyone. Shine out your light from me, let the people see. And if your love all darkness flees, Spirit of light, shine out from me. Shine out your light from me, let the people see. And if your love all darkness flees, Spirit of light, shine out from me. Spirit of light, shine out from me.
If you feel like you've lost your way and there's no one at all in sight, take my hand and I'll lead you where everything is safe and full of light. That place is inside us. It's a treasure that never dies. Just look inside you and we will truly fly.
Shine out your light from me, let the people see. And take your love all darkness flees. Spirit of light, shine out from me. Shine out your light from me, let the people see. And take your love all darkness flees. Spirit of light, shine out from me. Shine out your light from me, let the people see. That with your love all darkness flees. Spirit of light, shine out from me. Shine out your light from me, let the people see. That with your love all darkness flees. Spirit of light, shine out from. Spirit of light, shine out from. Spirit of light, shine out from me.
Our soloists in that number were Kimberly Wooldridge and April Doterive. Dave had to finish it. And please welcome Reverend Patty Mercado.
Awesome choir. That was fantastic. So beautiful. So it's my pleasure to be with all of us this morning and all of you. And it's that beautiful time of the year when we get to hear from someone in our congregation that speaks for all of us, I always think. So this week we have the joy and privilege of hearing from Kevin Crump. I know he's here because I just saw him. There he is. Woo! Yay! All right. Thank you.
Good morning. This on? Yes. There we go. So oddly enough, we landed here more or less because of we were looking for a home. It was more of a list of things we didn't want. And I personally grew up in a church. Called Shepherd, and still on that today. All of that stuff. So, came here like literally once or twice. We bailed on you guys for like 6 months, but thoroughly, you guys are in spiritual home. And then it came time for my wife. So we said, well, so we came here. So of course, after so after about 6 months of being married, we're like, so and around that time, my wife was getting ready to have, and we have a 13-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 3-month-old right now. And this place honors them every aspect of it. Had a leadership that you hear about, which I think I was invited just to like fix stuff and help fix stuff. Poor Fred was holding that torch all these years alone, I think. It's such an amazing experience. Island, junior hires. And on top of that, that one after that one course. So over here, and the way that everything is absolutely very welcoming. New, hope you find that, feel the same way. I will love you and honor you. All of that.
How beautiful. Thank you. So this morning we have a treat. One of my very favorite people in the whole world is here to share with us. He is the founding member, along with his beautiful wife, founding ministers of the Saddleback Center for Spiritual Living. They have since retired, and we're blessed that you're here with us this morning. Please welcome Reverend Dr. Steve Gabrielson.
Thank you so much. I'm going to grab it. The first thing I usually like to do is rearrange the furniture, so. How's everybody doing? How many of you have ever heard of Lynn and I before today? Okay, so we're kind of well known around here. I'll just give you a quick rundown. We came here in 1992, and similar to the story you just heard, we'd been married at that time for since 1978. We did not go to church whatsoever. We were anti-religion, and we were really into the goal setting and success and all that. We got talked into going to a personal growth seminar by a friend of ours. Thought we didn't need it, but he'd already paid for it, so we went. And as I was sitting there, I was looking around thinking, boy, these people really need this. You know what I mean? But when it was over, toward the end, I had a breakthrough. And at a different point, Lynn had a breakthrough. And I realized that we had deliberately cut spirituality out of our lives. And we made a decision at that point to look around for churches. And we ended up here. And we started taking the training. We became ministers while we were here. We were on the board. At the time that the vote for Dr. Heather, Lynn and I were both on the board. I was the treasurer. Lynn was in charge of membership. And then we started our own center on August 1st, 1999 with Dr. Heather's 100% complete blessing. It was 100 feet short of 10 miles from here, which, we're supposed to be 10 miles, but we got special permission to be 100 feet short. And I was still the treasurer of this church until November of that year, even though we started our center in August, because nobody wanted to be treasurer. And then Fred Mercado came to my office in November, and he became treasurer. So anyway, that's the short story on that. So let's have a hand for that story. Huh? So, there's a couple up we got Thanksgiving coming up. There's a couple in Laguna Woods, and this happened recently, but the husband got on the phone with his son on the East Coast. And of course, the son and the grandkids are on the East Coast now, and they weren't planning to come back for Thanksgiving. So the father got on the phone, and he said, "Son, I just want to tell you, your mom and I have been married for 50 years, but I've had it, and we're going to get a divorce. I haven't told her yet, and I'm going to tell her on Thanksgiving." And the son said, "Dad, don't do it. Wait till we get there. We weren't planning to come for Thanksgiving, but we'll be there. Don't say anything to Mom till we get there." Father hung up, and he said, "It worked. The kids are coming for Thanksgiving, and they're paying their own way." So we're going to talk about gratitude here today. And let me start out with a little quote, which I think it's from the book, The Grateful Heart. It's really appropriate if you think about the words here. How would it be if just for today, we thought less about contests and rivalries, profits and politics, winners and sinners, and more about helping and giving, mending and blending, reaching out and pitching in? How would it be? Is that perfect quote for what's going on right now in the world? So I'm going to start out with kind of the presumption that we all have a belief about gratitude, and that gratitude is really a good thing, right? I mean, you know that, you've taken classes, you've heard it here. And I'm going to kind of start out with the fact that you are already convinced that gratitude is good. And would you also agree that if you're going to be in an attitude of gratitude, that you have to be in the present moment? Would you agree with that? So is there anything going on in the world today that you can think of that might be keeping you or us from being in the present moment? Is there anything you can think of? Okay. There's a book out that just, which maybe you're familiar with. If not, you can be very familiar with it in a few minutes, called Irresistible: The Rise of Addictive Technology and the Business of Keeping Us Hooked. Anybody heard of it? Okay. This is a book about what's actually happening to us in our daily lives. Now, how is the addictive technology visible in our world? And we're going to be talking about this for the next few minutes. Lynn and I go to the gym on Mondays and Fridays, and we do Pilates. So came out of the locker room, our respective locker rooms, on Friday morning, and Lynn came out first, and she was waiting for me. And there's this big lobby area in our gym. And when I came out, Lynn said, "Look around this room. This is like the living dead." Every single person that was sitting there was looking at their cell phone. You know, there was a movie called Night of the Walking Dead or Night of the Living Dead or something about 20 years ago, but, let me just give you a demonstration of how this looks. The Walking Dead, or at that point in time in the movie, were kind of like that, right? Have you ever seen anybody walking down the street like that? Does it kind of remind you of that? I was tested. Part of what I do in my career is I'm also a CPA. And by the way, I'm not retired. I'm retired from ministry. But I was testifying in court in Riverside, and I came back from lunch, and I was going to be on the stand, and the courtroom doors were locked. So everybody was sitting in the hall waiting to go in. And I came around the corner, and it was dead silence. There was about 20 people sitting there. 12 jurors, the bailiff, the court clerk, everybody was sitting there. Every single person was sitting there. Absolutely zero conversation. How can you see this nowadays in our world other than what I mentioned? Well, let's look at schools. Teachers are saying that it's almost impossible to get the kids' attention anymore. And they're complaining that the students are bringing their cell phones in and they're learning how to you tell them to put them away and they even know how to send text in their pockets without even looking at it. But what's happening to the teachers? They're saying in the teachers' lounges, and some of you are maybe teachers, you may be able to verify this. You go into the teachers' lounge now, it's dead silence because all the teachers are in there during their breaks and they're on their phones. So let's look at this and see what the effect has been on us. And we're going to come around to what does this mean to us in terms of us being able to express gratitude and live in principle and live our lives the way that we're used to living it when we follow his teaching. You know what the attention span of the average human being is today? 8 seconds. 8 seconds. Do you know what the attention span of a goldfish is? 9 seconds. Right. So we have less attention span now as human beings than any living creature that we know of on Earth. How much of time are we spending on our screens? Now, the guy that wrote this book thought that he was spending about an hour or so a day on his cell phone, but he got some software that allowed him to measure that. And he found out he was on his cell phone 3 hours a day. Now, cell phones nowadays, by the way, are not being used to make phone calls much. That's actually the 11th thing on the list. The top 10 do not include making phone calls. The statistics are, and these are not put together by calling people up and saying, how much time are you spending on your smartphone? The people that make these phones are tracking everything we're doing, just like the Nielsen's for TV. How much time are we spending on our phones? Take a guess how much the average person in this country is spending on their smartphone every day. 4 hours. How much time are we spending watching TV nowadays? 4 hours. So we're spending about half of our waking hours on screens of some kind. Texting, people between age 18 and 24 are sending every day on the average 128 texts to each other. Now, with the older generation doing that too, not as much. Over age 55, we're sending 16 a day. However, the over 65 crowd is spending 50 hours a week watching TV. Now, why are they watching TV? At this point in time, we have 455 scripted TV programs that are, serial type programs on the regular channels, the cable, and all the other devices that we can have on our iPad. Now, let's look at this for a moment from the standpoint of the person that basically created all this. Who created the iPhone? Steve Jobs, right? Who created the iPad? Steve Jobs. In 2010, Steve Jobs came out and he introduced the iPad and he did his demo. You've probably seen some of those. By the way, Steve Jobs passed away, unfortunately. But a reporter went to his house later and had dinner with the family. And as you know, Steve had children. And the reporter, during dinner, noticed that the children were not on their cell phones. And so he asked Steve at the end of the dinner, he says, how do your children like the iPad? Steve says, I don't know. I never gave them one. Steve Jobs would not allow his children to have an iPad. What turns out that the leaders of the companies, the creators of this in Silicon Valley, are so aware of the addictive nature of this technology that they are either not giving it to their families or they're putting very harsh limits on it. But the rest of us are out there using it, not being aware of what's going on. There's actually a phobia now called nomophobia. no mobile phobia, that, and 40% of the people in this country are addicted to their smartphones. 280 million, and this might include Canada too, but in 2016, 280 million people were addicted to their smartphones. How addictive is this? World of Warcraft, which is a video game that you can play, is so addictive that half of the people that have ever played it have been at one time or another addicted to it. And there are actually places that you can go to, like 12-step places where you go. There are people now, there's a recognized specialty in the psychiatric field for helping people become unaddicted to their exercise watches. Because that is addictive. Or what do you call them? Are they watches, or what do you call them? Fitbit, whatever. Isn't that amazing? Now you might say, you know what? I don't use my cell phone that much. I'm not a person that's addicted. Well, do you have Netflix? We didn't have Netflix until we retired from our church. We got it in January of 2016. In 3 weeks, we watched all 62 episodes of Breaking Bad. And the longest stretch we went, I think, was 6 straight. And if you've done that, you'll know that it counts down at the end of the program. And it says the next thing will start in 60 seconds, 59, 58, 57, and bang, you're doing it again. And of course, at the end of the series, they have a countdown. This series is over, but here are 5 other ones that we would like to recommend to you. And they show up, and you can actually sit there and start your next addictive program right there on the spot without even getting up out of the chair. Our programs that we got addicted to were Breaking Bad, House of Cards, Game of Thrones. How about you guys? Which ones have you been watching? Tell me. Jackie, okay. Okay, Madam Secretary, okay. Good. Well, okay, we like that one too. Stranger Things, there you go. There you go. What would you do if those programs were taken away from you? Would you be upset? If you go to the average teen and ask them if you can take their phone away, they will say that they would rather have you break their arm rather than take it away. Now, this is serious. If you ask the students to put their phones away for an hour, they will go into a panic. If you say we're confiscating your phone, and the phone ends up in the principal's office, and they go to the principal's office to talk to the principal, they will actually be there shaking because they're afraid they're going to lose their phone. These are things that are measurable and are visible everywhere. All right, so what's the counter to this? How do we stay in an attitude of gratitude? How do we stay in the present in the world that we're in nowadays? And now that we're aware of this, if you weren't already, well, spiritual practices, we'll come back to those. My own personal view is that spiritual practices today are more important than ever. And if you don't deliberately carve out time in your schedule, in 2008, we were spending an average of 18 minutes a day on our cell phones. We're now spending over 4 hours. If that increase has either cut into or eliminated our spiritual practices, then that, in my opinion, is serious. What would be an example of somebody that is able to stay fully in the present and be in the state of absolute gratitude in every single second? Best example that I can think of, that Lynn and I watch this almost every night. Have you ever heard of a guy named Huell Hauser? Okay. He has passed away, but he had a show called California Gold, and he would go around to various places in California and just show up with his camera crew and parks and different cities, small towns, what have you. We have never seen a person that operates in an absolute state of 100% gratitude in every moment than Huell Hauser. Am I right, the people that have watched that? Okay. So if you want a role model, go on PBS any night. I think it comes on at 7, and you can watch that. Now, I had an experience one time I just want to briefly share with you what it was like before, and this is before the addictive technology came around, but I was in a men's seminar. It was a week-long seminar. And one of the things we had to do was go out into the woods with a sleeping bag and a tent by ourselves. And this is before cell phones. We had to cut the tags off of all our clothes and our sleeping bags so there was nothing to read. Because if you're bored, you can sit there. You can sit there and read 65% Dacron, 45%. And we had to be in absolute silence and no food for 24 hours. It sounds like absolute torture, doesn't it? No food, water, no conversations. We went out in the woods and we had our own spaces, and they were spaced out so that you could not see the other person. At the end of 24 hours, we came back in silence, and we sat down on the ground. And they blindfolded us, and then they said, "Okay, put your hand in here," and you would feel a grape. And before you ate that grape, you were supposed to hold it in your hand, put it in your mouth, and really savor it. It sounds gruesome. And, going into it, we were all just absolutely, deathly afraid of this. This can be horrible. And almost every single person, every single guy that went through that said when it was over, it was probably equal to or better than anything they had ever done in their entire life. And all we did was we were by ourselves, quiet for 24 hours with nothing to read, nobody to talk to. So let's talk about some spiritual practices here. How do we get in a state of gratitude? Now, how many of you heard Bruce Fredenberg, Reverend Bruce Fredenberg, give a talk? Have you ever heard his solution on how you get in an absolute state of gratitude instantaneously? Okay, here's how you do it. Bruce, you correct me if I'm wrong. You run the sink full of water. Then you bend over, you take a big breath, and you put your head under the water. And you hold your breath as long as you can. Now, this sounds silly, but I've done it. Bruce says, and I agree, that when you hold your breath as long as you can, when you pull your head out of there, you're going to be one of the most grateful people in the world, because now you can breathe again. Am I right, Bruce? And this actually works. But that isn't my suggestion for the day, but I just want to give Bruce credit for that. And by the way, we've been friends with Bruce for about 25 years, and I think the reason Bruce is here is because we came here first, and then you followed us, or did you come here first? Okay. So we're taking credit for Bruce. Now I know you're all familiar with the practice of either in the morning or at night, going through your mind and maybe picking out 3 things that you're grateful for during the day, right? So you know how to do that, and maybe you're doing that already. I'm going to suggest one additional thing that you try at least once. And this is reputed to be one of the most spectacular things you will ever do in your life. It was created by a gentleman who at one time was the head of the American Psychology Association, and he's the father of positive psychology. But he would have his students in the class. They would have to pick out a person that they feel was supportive of them and helped them in their life. And they would write a 300-word letter to that person, which is a thank you. They would then call up the person and say, "I'd like to come and see you," not saying why. And then when they showed up, they would read the letter to the person. That's the entire exercise. It is spectacular. And how does this tie into what we already know about life? When are the 2 times that we go to people and tell them how we really feel about it? Most of the people that we look up to have been mentors. When they're terminally ill, maybe, we go sit beside their bed and we tell them. Or we wait until they're gone, and then we go to the memorial service, and then we tell everybody, okay? That's why Lynn and I were so, we loved doing memorial services. Obviously sad that someone has passed away, but during memorial services is where you really find out about how somebody lived their life and the love that the people around them had. And so the suggestion here is do this at least once during your life, and I suggest that you do it in the next couple of weeks, and during Thanksgiving would be great. Sit down, write a letter, 300 words or less, thank you to somebody in your life that has supported you, expressing your gratitude to them, and go sit down with them one-on-one and read it to them. Are you willing to do that? Excellent. Thank you so much. Let's anchor this talk in prayer.
We are held in
child receives protection from a mother's warm embrace, we are held in the hands of grace. We are held in the hands of God, forever safe in the arms of love. Like a child receives protection from a mother's warm embrace, we are held in the hands of grace. We are held in the hands of
And let's take those beautiful words and let's go inside. And know that indeed we are held in the hands of grace. Because grace, Spirit, God is working in, around, through, for, and as every person present in this room. Everyone who has ever set foot in this center. And indeed, every single person that we meet on our spiritual path. So as we come out of this service this morning, we come out with an attitude of gratitude. Knowing that gratitude is a direct path to Spirit, to grace, to God, to our good, to being in the present, to living our lives fully. And we open ourselves up to the realization right now that if we take ourselves back to what it is that works for us on an individual basis, on a daily basis, those spiritual practices that we use, and maybe we're not using them as much right now as we have in the past, but we commit now to those spiritual practices, knowing that it's absolutely crucial that we do use the science of mind principles to guide and direct our thoughts, to allow God to work and express fully through us at all times, without any interference from us. We go into our future now and to the next moments of this time that we spend together, knowing that all is well, that we are whole, complete, and perfect, that every person that's here is whole, complete, and perfect, that every person we meet is whole, complete, and perfect. We are so grateful for this chance to go together today. We are so grateful that we have the teaching that we talk about in this center during the week and every Sunday. We know it, we believe in it, and we live it. So with this thanks, I accept this good on behalf of everyone present here, on behalf of anyone who has ever set foot in this center, on behalf of everyone in our movement. And so it is.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Steve. And please welcome back the Jewel Tones Choir. While our choir is getting up there, where our next song is called For All the Blessings of the Earth, in honor of Thanksgiving and gratitude and everything. I am so grateful for these wonderful people that volunteer their time every week to sing and share their voices with you. Choir's going to stay because they're going to also sing for offertory.
It's time for our love offering, and if our stewards would please come forward. And as you prepare that gift, knowing that it is the gift of a grateful heart, that as we give, we receive, and that it is such a blessing to be part of that divine flow. So please affirm with me, I give with a grateful heart.
I give with a grateful heart.
And so it is.
And so it is.
And we have this beautiful, beautiful, familiar tune called "'Tis the Gift to Be Simple."
Tis the gift to be simple, 'tis the gift to be free, 'tis the gift to come down where you ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, to be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend, we shan't be ashamed. To turn, to be our delight, till by turning, turning, we come round. 'Tis the gift to be gentle, 'tis the gift to be fair, 'tis the gift to wake and breathe the morning air, and every day to walk in the path we choose. 'Tis the gift that we pray we may ne'er come to lose. When true simplicity is chased, to bow and to bend, we shan't be ashamed. 'Tis the gift to be simple, 'tis the gift to be free, till by turning, turning, we come round, round. 'Tis the gift, 'tis the gift to be loving, 'tis the gift best of all, like a quiet wave, it blesses where it goes, and the gift we will throw, 'tis gift and it is to receive. True simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend, we shan't be ashamed. To turn, turn, to be our delight, till by turning, turning, we come round, round. Turning, turning, we come round, round.
Yes, thank you so much, choir. And you can scoot on out because otherwise you get run over by children. So here we go. Go ahead. Just a light.